We can probably all agree that no coronavirus variant is good. However, it does seem that some variants are particularly good at being bad. And one in particular is now being described by WHO officials as the most able and fastest and fittest of all the variants. Here's what you need to know. The Delta variant is becoming the dominant strain of coronavirus worldwide, according to the WHO, and its combination of high transmissibility, high severity, and escape from vaccines makes it very dangerous, experts told National Geographic. The variant has a number of mutations in its spike proteins that can make it harder for antibodies to attach to the virus, or easier for it to latch onto and invade human cells. According to science journal Nature, one mutation in particular is at the furin cleavage site, which is important for the virus's ability to replicate inside human airways. If the virus is better at replicating inside human airways, it can mean an individual is likely to shed more virus particles when infected, a virologist at Imperial College London told the Daily Telegraph. UK Health Secretary Matt Hancock told the BBC this month the variant was around 40% more transmissible than the Alpha variant. The Alpha variant itself is thought to be between 40 and 70% more transmissible than the original virus strain found in Wuhan, according to studies cited by the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. A Public Health England study on vaccine efficacy against the Delta variant found the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine 96% effective against hospitalization after 2 doses, with AstraZeneca 92% effective. Overall, it found Pfizer-BioNTech 6% less effective than it is against the Alpha variant, and AstraZeneca 1% less effective. More information is needed to confirm reports the Delta variant causes more severe disease, according to the WHO's COVID technical lead, Maria Van Kerkhove. However, Tim Spector, a researcher with a COVID symptom study, told New Atlas its symptoms were more often headaches and runny noses than coughing or loss of smell, which could result in people not realizing they have COVID. It is also possible to find convincing evidence that this variant causes more severe disease than any other variants. A study published in the Lancet Medical Journal found that people in Scotland infected with the Delta variant were twice as likely to be hospitalized as those infected with the Alpha. But the takeaway from all of these reports should surely be this. Even if the vaccines are slightly less effective against this variant, they still remain our strongest defense against it. What do Bahrain and the Indian Ocean island nation of Seychelles have in common? According to the Wall Street Journal, they have both relied predominantly on the China-produced Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccine, and both have also experienced recent spikes in infections, despite large percentages of their populations being fully vaccinated. The picture, though, is a bit more complicated than it seems. Here's what you need to know. Doubts have arisen around the efficacy of China's Sinopharm vaccine after Bahrain began recommending over 50s with comorbidities get a booster of Pfizer-BioNTech 6 months after their second Sinopharm shot, according to the Wall Street Journal. The Sinopharm vaccine works by teaching our immune systems how to attack the coronavirus using inactivated viruses which can't replicate, according to the New York Times. Once injected into a patient, inactivated virus particles are swallowed by antigen-presenting cells that break them up and present fragments of them on their surfaces. From there, helper T cells can attach to the fragments and send signals to activate other parts of the immune system, including B cells and cytotoxic T cells, according to Encyclopedia Britannica. Cytotoxic T cells attach to infected cells and subsequently program them to die, according to the journal Immunobiology. B cells create antibodies that attach to viruses to prevent them from invading cells, according to the New York Times. The idea behind the Sinopharm vaccine is that the body's immune system remembers this response using memory B cells. It is then ready to help reproduce the same specific antibodies if it comes into contact with a functioning coronavirus, according to the New York Times. The Washington Post reports Bahrain may have been prompted to recommend Pfizer-BioNTech booster shots after the country saw its worst wave of cases since the pandemic began in recent weeks. This came despite having vaccinated almost half of its population, mostly with the Sinopharm vaccine. Bahrain's Undersecretary of Health, however, pointed out to the Wall Street Journal that despite the recommendation, more than 90% of people hospitalized in this country's current COVID-19 wave had not been vaccinated and insisted that Sinopharm offered a high degree of protection. In Seychelles, it is a similar story. Despite 63% of its population being fully vaccinated and 57% of those receiving Sinopharm doses, in May, average cases rose to 400 new cases daily, up from around 50 in April, according to the BBC. However, similar to Bahrain, of those who required admission to a hospital, 80% hadn't been vaccinated. The country's health commissioner, Jude Gedeon, underlined the meaning of that statistic in an interview with local newspaper Seychelles Nation, saying, "All the approved vaccines are effective at preventing severe illness and death from COVID-19. We know from national experience and report that they are less effective at preventing transmission. So at least one of the effects we may be watching here is that the Sinopharm vaccine prevents serious illness developing, but doesn't prevent the coronavirus from spreading." However, there are still more explicit doubts expressed about the vaccine's efficacy. According to the BBC, the head of China's Center for Disease Control and Prevention, George Gao, appeared to address the issue when he said, "We will solve the problem that current vaccines don't have very high protection rates," in a press conference reported by the Associated Press in April. What's more, according to the Wall Street Journal, an unpublished real-world study of Sinopharm in Serbia found that 29% of 150 participants had zero antibodies against the virus 3 months after they received the first 2 shots. Olgica Jerkovic-Jakovic, the doctor who headed the study at the University of Belgrade, told the Wall Street Journal directly, "The Sinopharm vaccine is not immunogenic enough, and it appears that its impact is especially low on elderly recipients." For its part, the WHO's assessment of the vaccine, based on multi-country trial data from tens of thousands of people, was that it was 79% effective against symptomatic SARS-CoV-2 infection 14 or more days after the second dose, and vaccine efficacy against hospitalization was 79%. However, that briefing partially acknowledged one widespread claim against Sinopharm, that not enough trial data has been released about it, saying that safety data was limited for people above 60 years of age. A powerful new COVID-19 vaccine from Novavax uses a different approach from previous vaccines and has been found to work well in more than 90% of tested individuals. These results are paving the way for it to be available later this year in the US and elsewhere. The Novavax vaccine uses purified pieces of the coronavirus to spur an immune response in the body. Here are the details. Reuters reports that Novavax Incorporated said on Monday, June 14th, that its new COVID-19 vaccine was more than 90% effective against a variety of coronavirus variants. The company says its vaccine is most effective against the original coronavirus strain, as well as the Alpha strain that was first detected in the UK. The vaccine is a more conventional type of mixture than those currently available. Novavax does not use mRNA, unlike mRNA vaccines like that of Pfizer and Moderna, which contain a piece of genetic code called RNA that prompts the body to create an immune response against the virus. Novavax differs from this in that it uses the traditional approach of injecting purified pieces of the virus to spur an immune response more directly. It contains an actual version of the virus's spike protein that has been treated so it cannot cause disease, but can still trigger the immune system. The body can then make antibodies against the spike proteins that cover the coronavirus and which enable the virus to penetrate human cell membranes. The Novavax vaccine showed successful results after its Phase 3 clinical trial, which tested more than 30,000 volunteers in the US and Mexico. This puts Novavax on track to have its 2-dose vaccine approved in the US and elsewhere in the third quarter of 2021. It's official. Coronavirus is now like a slightly deranged kid in a slightly deranged candy store. It's collecting all of the worst things for your body and packaging them up to see what they do to you. Of course, the kid in the candy store is just collecting candy, while this virus is collecting mutations that make it more efficient at reproducing inside your body. But you get the idea. Here's what you need to know. A new coronavirus hybrid that combines the Indian variant with mutations originally belonging to the UK variant has been detected in Vietnam, according to the country's health minister cited by the AFP. The Indian variant is able to spread more easily than earlier forms of the virus, partly because of a mutation it carries on its spike protein called L452R, according to Grace Roberts, research fellow in virology at Queen's University Belfast, writing in The Conversation. The L452R mutation allows the virus to bind to ACE2 receptors on human cells more stably. Once the two are bound together, the cell's membrane engulfs the virus and internalizes it. The Indian variant also carries a second mutation on the spike protein called E484Q. According to Roberts at Queen's University, research suggests mutations that affect this area of the spike protein may make the virus less susceptible to pre-existing antibodies. The new variant found in Vietnam combines both of these previous mutations with a Y144 deletion on its protein spike that is consistent with the UK variant, according to Vietnam's National Institute of Hygiene and Epidemiology, cited by VN Express. This missing amino acid can also make it more difficult for antibodies to stick to the virus, according to the New York Times. After keeping the virus at low levels for most of last year, Vietnam's infections since late April accounted for more than half of its total 6,856 registered cases, according to a May 30th AFP report. The WHO has not yet made any assessment of the apparent new virus variant. However, it has introduced a new naming system for notable variants based on the Greek alphabet. A statement on its website said naming variants after particular countries was stigmatizing and discriminatory. Under the new system, the UK variant is labeled as Alpha, the South African variant, Beta, and the Indian variant as Delta. The change comes in response to widespread displeasure among the scientific community over the use of national labels for new variants. In a letter to the journal Science, one group of researchers said the labels de-incentivized country-level genomic surveillance and transparent reporting of results. They also added that the practice was inaccurate because it is not known whether patient 0 of each variant was a resident of or visitor to that country, and all variants have been identified well beyond the first countries in which they were identified.
For more news animations and explainers, hit the subscribe and bell button to join the TomoNews family. Thanks for watching.